Y'all, today's show is so good.
But number one, I've never seen an intro like that.
It is my hope and desire that not only will episode 30 still be fun, but episode 300 will be even more fun. You were made for something great, so go and be awesome.
Ten seconds remaining.
Hello, and welcome to the show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, I'm so excited about today because today's episode is brought to you by Executive Help Now. At Executive Help Now, we're a virtual assistant service agency dedicated to helping you simplify your business so you can focus on what really matters. From streamlining operations to managing administrative tasks and keeping everything organized. Our team is here to help you and your team thrive. If you're ready to make a life a little bit easier, hit us up at www.executivehelpnow.org. Y'all, today's guest is amazing. His name is Dan Johnson, and he is a four-time nonprofit founder and coach who's helped numerous nonprofits thrive. He's raised over $3 million and turned around struggling organizations and guided over 30 leaders to create sustainable operations. Dan grew his first nonprofit to 10,000 volunteers and has driven policy change at even the federal and state levels. His work has been featured in outlets like CNN and Vanity Fair. He's also the creator of the 5 Levels of Sustainability framework. Dan lives in North Carolina with his wife and 2 sons, and today he is here on the show. Welcome, Dan Johnson.
What an intro. Thanks so much for having me, Renee.
Oh my gosh, Dan, I'm so excited that you are here. So excited. And I'm going to tell you why. Because my favorite years in my whole life were in the nonprofit field. So as many people know, I came from corporate America. I worked over 20 years as the executive assistant to the C-suite in corporate America. A long time ago, I decided to start a little side hustle on the side and started Executive Help Now. And while I was doing that, one of the companies I worked for had a corporate nonprofit organization, and I was in charge of it. I was in charge of raising money for this organization, and the mission of the organization was to help employees who had been impacted by natural disasters. So it was super fun, super exciting, and I can't wait to get into it with you to talk more about how we can do work that is so impactful and so meaningful and get total joy and fulfillment out of it in the midst of all of the ups and downs of it all. So we're like kindred spirits right here, you and I.
That is incredible. I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. So thank you so much for being here on the show with us today. So tell us about your path. How did you join this nonprofit journey?
Well, I reached the pinnacle of politics and I saw behind the curtain and there was no Oz. That's what happened.
Wow.
So in 2012, I started my first organization, which was PANDA, or People Against the NDAA. You might be familiar with a dark era of American history where we detained about 120,000 Japanese Americans without a charge or a trial because we were concerned that they might help the Japanese in the war effort against us. And Congress apologized for that. You know, we talked about the the problems of that, but we never really wanted to give up that power. And in 2012, the Congress and the president signed into law a bill that gave the president the power to designate someone a terrorist and strip their right to a trial. And I was pretty upset about that. As someone who had studied a little bit of history, you know, that was a really bad sign and a piece of power you do not want in the hands of one person. And I started an organization to try and combat that. I had no idea what I was doing. started my
movement start.
Oh yeah, the first name of my organization, which eventually became Panda, was the absolutely brilliant BCRN, the Bowling Green State University Committee for Repealing the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, if that isn't a marketable name, I don't know what it is.
I don't even know if I can remember what you said at the beginning, at the end.
So I didn't know what I had no idea what I was doing. And, you know, somehow through a lot of trial and error, banging our head against the wall, you know, we ended up with 45 chapters at the end of that year. By the end of year 2, we had 6,000 or 7,000 volunteers. By the end of year 3, we were at 10,000 volunteers. We defeated legislation in the Senate. We passed legislation at the state level in Alaska, in Idaho. And we passed legislation at the county level. And, you know, I had a extremely fast start to a political career that I didn't want. And, you know, from there, really developed, you know, a couple different organizations, took on several different issues, and found ourselves, you know, the moment where everything changed, where it wasn't just Dan is now in politics, was we had made it to what I would consider to be the top. So we were there's a group in DC called the Public Finance Working Group. And if you Google it, you won't find it because they're not on Google. And this is where the decisions about tax and revenue policy are made. It's not in Congress. They're made at the Public Finance Working Group. And this is one of those back rooms that people talk about in politics, right? And we were a member. We were one of the members of this back room. And I distinctly remember this is when Donald Trump threw out the child tax credit for the first time, which is the money you get back from taxes for having a certain, you know, amount of kids, right?
Right.
And nobody had ever heard of this before. He just kind of threw it out at a rally, and everybody was like blindsided by it. And everybody in the room was discussing, well, what are we going to do now that this is real? And I was thinking, what are you going to do now that this is real? He just threw it out at a rally. Why are we all sitting here going, well, we have to do something about this now, and you know, we're gonna have it. And I realized at that moment, I am in a room of what most people would consider to be some of the most powerful people in the world, and they have no power.
Right. That part.
Some random dude threw out an idea at a rally, and everybody in this room turned tail and ran. And I started to look at other options, honestly, at that point, because I was like, politics isn't where the power is. So where is it?
Right.
And I ended up looking into community organizations. In particular, do you remember the Cajun Navy?
The Cajun Navy? No.
So the Cajun Navy is a ragtag group of boaters who formed after Hurricane Katrina and the failure of FEMA in Hurricane Katrina to protect the people in New Orleans. So they formed their own boat group with people with their shallow bottom boats called the Cajun Navy.
Okay.
And they would rescue people during floods in Louisiana. Well, in 2017, they went down to Texas for Hurricane Harvey.
Mhm.
Hurricane Harvey dropped 2 million gallons of water on Houston, right? Completely
Bananas. Yeah.
wrecked the city. And somebody asked me if I wanted to listen in on the emergency channel because I was studying this organization.
Mhm.
Sure. How often do you get to do that? Okay.
Right? Yeah.
And the moment everything changed was you're listening on the emergency channel and they're all talking about the rescues that they're doing. We're going to this area and this area. And it's a very lively radio channel.
Mhm.
And then a voice pops on the line and says, there's a 3-year-old hanging on the branch at the corner of such and such 2 streets. We can't get to him. Our boat is full. We can't pull him in. We can't get across the water. I forget what the reason was. They couldn't get to him. Can anybody get to these 2 streets? And the line was silent for like 3 minutes.
Oh my word.
And then somebody pops onto the line and goes, we got him. He's in the boat. We got him. And every
What?
it's real. Oh, yeah. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I got to do more. I joined the social media team with the Cajun Navy. And what we would do is we would look on social media for people with who were posting Houston zip codes. And they would say, my kids are living at such and such zip code. Can anyone go check on them and see if they're okay? And we'd reach out, we'd figure out how high the water was, and you'd send in like IT tickets and this janky IT system. Like people would be like, my printer doesn't work. Well, this was grandma's drowning. You would send that in and they would send a boat out and get them. And the Cajun Navy rescued as many people as the Coast Guard that year. Coast Guard had a $5 billion budget. The Cajun Navy rescued 5,000 people that year from Hurricane Harvey with like $100,000.
Oh my word. Oh my word.
And I realized at that point, oh, nonprofits are where it's at. And if we can, if we can get nonprofits to the point where they're not just organizations that people give to because they want to feel good. They're not just organizations that do good in the community. They're not just organizations that get everyone's garbage and try to make something good out of it. If we can recognize as a society that the biggest challenges we have that we face right now, the challenges of disaster relief, the challenges of the high cost of healthcare, the challenges of homelessness, the challenges, these social challenges that we face, that nonprofits are in position to take on those challenges and can show impact, that nonprofits are where the solutions come from.
Yes.
We can change everything in our country. And that's what got me started down helping nonprofits.
Wow. 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 What a story. What a testimony of the value of nonprofits and just the humanity that does exist. I mean, some networks would have you believe that people hate people. That is just not true. It is just not true. And the way you have come and not only taken an active part and an active role in that one organization, but used it as like a fuel to undergird you in your efforts to help other nonprofits. Like, yes, you are change makers. Yes, you do this thing right and things change, not just for you and not just for your community, but has impact, even a ripple effect from your community can have impact, right? So it's not just for if you're located in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're doing some great work, the life you impact here impacts others that are connected to that life you've impacted. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. And I want nonprofits to really think about that. You know, I want nonprofits, you know, so many nonprofits are started because you see a problem in your community and you want to do good. You want to make some sort of impact on that problem, right?
Right, right.
Nonprofit leaders, more so than in any other sector, but entrepreneurs have this too, have a lack mindset. It's in the name nonprofit. It's defined by what we are not. Lack mindset of how many times have you heard a nonprofit leader say, oh, well, we barely spend anything on staff and on salaries. We make sure that all of our money goes to the people we serve. We, we're here for whatever you want to give us. When they ask for money, they're like, whatever extras. Even in our discussion prior to this, you're like, whatever extras people have, because that's the idea that people have of nonprofits, including the nonprofit founders, is that nonprofits are there to make us feel good. Their nonprofits are there to help us feel good about ourselves, feel good about humanity, feel good about helping our community. Those are all good things. And those are all cool things you get out of being a part of a nonprofit. But nonprofits do one thing that nobody else does well, which is nonprofits help the groups of people who cannot afford to help themselves. That is what nonprofits can do, is make an impact on those people. And when you're running a nonprofit, I want you, this will change everything. Clip this if you want. This will change everything if you run a nonprofit. I want you to start measuring your success by your impact and not how frugal you are.
Right. Oh, I love that. Measure your success by your impact, not by how frugal you are. Impact. How many lives have you impacted? And don't forget that ripple effect of the people who are connected to that life that you impacted. I love that.
Well, and let's talk about that ripple effect, right? So yeah. I want to measure. I already, so for the nonprofit leaders or business owners who sit on nonprofit boards or whatever, yeah, we already measure our impact. That's no big deal. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. Because I want you to think just one example of the economic impact. Let's take a small nonprofit. This is a nonprofit that we'll call them youth entrepreneurs. They help young people start their own businesses. Help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds become entrepreneurs and start their own businesses, right? Okay. So this is a nonprofit, only helps 100 young people per year. Probably like a lot of small nonprofits, only help a certain number of people per year. Okay, have 100 young people per year. And out of those 100 young people, 80% of them do not start their own business. So only 20%, only 20 of those young people start their own business. Out of those 20 young people who start their own business, half of them fail. So we're down to 10. Mm-hmm. And out of those 10, only 5 of them grow enough to have 10 or more employees. So we're down to 5. It's a 5% success rate. Mm-hmm. Yet a business that has 10 employees is likely a $750,000 to $1 million business, if not more. Mm-hmm. So by helping 100 kids and only 5 of them succeed, which most nonprofits have a better success rate than that, you brought $5 million of impact into your community, not even considering ripple effects, not even considering the reduction in crime, not even considering the inspiration that you gave to all the other people in their lives who didn't go out and do their own business, but now they believe in themselves. $5 million of impact, and you're still walking in and asking people for $100.
Right. Definitely needs to be a shift, a mindset shift for sure. And by the way, Nia Robinson says hi to me and you. So hi, Nia.
Hey, Neil.
I'm glad to have folks in the audience participating. Feel free, if you have any questions for me or Dan, drop them in the chat. We're happy to engage you in the conversation. So as we're talking about this impact, which is so critically important to be able to document and wrap our head around the mindset shift that is needed, we really have to think more about the good that is happening as a result of the efforts that we are putting in. So whether you're a nonprofit or a business owner, I mean, either way, when you focus on the impact and how you're leaving people after they've been a part of your organization, or after they've taken part in one of your programs, or after they've taken advantage of one of your services, or whatever that looks like, we really have to think about what impact are we having in their life? What is going to keep them coming back to us? And how are we going to continue this trajectory to not just impacting that one life, but to impacting communities, impacting entire communities? So how do we build that sustainable success? Once we get our mind right, okay, that's the first thing. How do we sustain that success, Dan?
Yeah, so I am building my first for-profit with my consulting firm, so I'm not sure how much I can speak to the for-profit side, but I can speak a lot to the nonprofit side. So the number one killer of nonprofit organizations, and why I work with new ones, is burnout. 100%, that is the number one killer.
Burnout.
Because you as a nonprofit leader, you are doing this work because you care.
Right.
You are doing this work because it matters. And you feel like there's so much need out there, and you have to respond to all of it, and you have to meet all of it. And so you constantly, even if you start at 5 hours a week, it's 10, it's 20, it's 30, it's 40, it's your husband and your kids are wondering where you went for the past 3 weeks. That is the typical trajectory of nonprofit leaders, because you see the impact and you just want to keep making it, and over and over and over and over again. Here's the problem. For-profits, they have a one-phase impact cycle, or one-phase revenue cycle. Sell. That is your revenue cycle as a for-profit. Sales. There have been millions of books written on selling. Why? Because when you sell and you get a new client, that means more money you can go spend on getting new clients who you can sell, you can get more money, and you have a one-phase revenue cycle. When people go into nonprofits, they know this one-phase revenue cycle because it's everywhere in their lives, but they don't realize that nonprofits aren't that way. Because nonprofits serve people who cannot afford, or at least afford at the level that we provide their services, the nonprofit revenue cycle is two-phase. It is impact and funding. If you do too much impact and do not raise enough money, which is where most nonprofit founders are, your impact will slow and stop. If you do too much funding and don't have any impact, your funding will eventually decrease as well. This is why everything is slower in nonprofits, because you have to both raise the money and go do the thing. So how do you make that kind of impact sustainable? You have to remember that you have to do both every single time. So when you go out and you're like, I'm starting a nonprofit to go help homeless people, and we're going to help them get into permanent housing or whatever, what most nonprofit leaders will do is they'll just go start helping people get into permanent housing. You cannot do that. Why? Because if you don't know that kind of thing is going to get funded before you get started, then you are building something that isn't sustainable. And the impact that you have in mind, social change is hard. The impact that you have in mind for what your organization can do, you won't get there because you didn't look at both sides of the equation. So when you go and create a new program and you go and make impact, the way you make it sustainable is every single time you launch a new program, every single time you create an organization, you have to both look at the impact side and the funding side. You have to get it funded before you start. And if you cannot, and you can get it funded at a small level, donors may not want to bet as much on you if you don't have a proven track record. Fine. Make it small. If you're a brand new nonprofit, you should usually never raise more than 10 grand for your first project. Make it small. But look at both sides of that equation and get funding for your work before you go do the work. If you do that, then you know that work is working that can get funded, and then you can grow that and be sustainable.
That makes perfect sense. And I love the illustration that you gave about helping, to provide permanent housing for homeless people. because it's not, when you have a nonprofit, yes, that's a great mission, it's a great vision, it's a great cause. But if you don't provide those wraparound services that help the recipients of that support know and understand the basic concepts of what it means to be a renter or to be a homeowner or to have steady income or to, basically do all of the things that are necessary to sustain themselves, then you're actually, I think, doing a disservice to that person, because the longer you keep taking care of them, the longer it'll take for them to figure out how to take care of themselves to sustain themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. And this is, most nonprofits define themselves by what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We provide housing to homeless people. We, help domestic violence survivors, get over that trauma. We do.
Right.
And that's a very for-profit mindset. We are going to help you with this thing right now. But the people who are buying are not the people you are serving 9 times out of 10. And what they're interested in is, where are we going? Not what do you do, but what is the transformation that you're creating in their lives in 10, in 15, in 20 years? And most nonprofits haven't sat down to think about that. So they're doing, right? They're helping the homeless person. They're helping the homeless person. They're doing this, they're doing that, but they haven't decided, what does good look like? How do we know we solved this problem? And so they get focused on providing the thing. Maybe let's say that your vision is that every homeless person in Houston has access to permanent housing, a job, and a place to go recreate. Coming up with a vision on the fly.
Transportation and childcare.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Childcare. Perfect. Right. So every homeless person has housing, transportation, and has adequate housing, transportation, and childcare in Houston. Okay. Well, you might think that that's providing them a house, but you might do that and then they don't have permanent housing because they didn't know how to take care of the house, or they didn't know what to do with the house, or whatever. And now you realize that what you have to provide looks nothing like what you thought it would take to get there. And if you define yourself by what you do, you will constantly do things that do not bear any results, and you will constantly struggle to get support from other people because they only see you doing and they don't see you making an impact.
Right. I love that. And especially because now when you bring on those wraparound services, that is how you can differentiate yourself from the other nonprofits. Like, there were 10,000 homeless people in Houston before our nonprofit started. We provided this kind of training, this kind of education, this kind of housing, this kind of childcare, this kind of transportation. This many people have been able to be recipients of this funding that you're providing to us. And so now there are no longer 10,000 homeless people in Houston, but there may be 5,000 homeless people in Houston because of them taking advantage of the services that we had to offer to help move them from where they were to where they desired to be.
Well, and I also recommend that nonprofits have a product.
Tell us more.
So the vast majority of nonprofit fundraising sounds a lot like this. You call up your friend and you're saying hi and you're catching up on how things are going. By the way, I also have a nonprofit, and what we do is we will use homeless. We house homeless people and we get them off the street in Houston. Oh, wow. That's so cool. Would you like to support us? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I have the money right now, but I'll, get back to you on that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the vast majority of nonprofit fundraising sounds like. Why? I want you, nonprofit leader or nonprofit board member, I want you to stand in the position of the donor for a second. Imagine that you're going into Walmart, except this time there are no products displayed. They're just black boxes. You don't know what's in them. And there's no prices on anything. They have a really friendly greeter, though, who you really like and is talking about all the great things that these products will do for you. But you have no idea what they cost, and you have absolutely no idea what they are. And then you get to the checkout line and they're like, well, what would you like to purchase?
Right. Wow.
That is how most nonprofits fundraise, Renee.
Wow. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I mean, they have to know, the donor has to know what they're getting, how their dollars are going to make a difference. They have to know that going in so that they have something to look forward to when you give up your next update and your next report. Like, yes, this is what you donated to. This is the cause that you supported. And let me show you how your dollars have made a difference.
Well, and even simpler than that, I want you to offer that up front. So instead of it being, hey, support my organization, you need to put together an impact project. You need to determine what kind of, if you're brand new to impact projects as a nonprofit, here's your parameters. Number one, the project costs less than $10,000. Number two, the project can be done in 90 days or less. You can get up to 6 months if you have a weird kind of organization, but no more than 6 months. And number three, the project must make a real impact on the lives of the people you serve. So it's not just like we're informing them about something irrelevant. You have to actually make an impact on them.
Right.
And then you present that product to donors as the impact project and tell them what it costs to do one of those. So for example, let's say you serve veterans who struggle with PTSD. And you know that it probably costs around $1,500 to put a veteran through your therapy program. And at the end, they report a reduction in PTSD. Cool. So your impact project is to put 4 veterans through this program and get them a reduction in PTSD by 25%, right? A reduction in panic attacks and episodes by 25%. And your ask to a donor is, would they fund one veteran to go through that program for $1,500 or whatever, right? Now you have a product, which is that veteran has less panic attacks. That is an actual product. You have a price, costs us $1,500. And now you have something the donor can buy. I guarantee you that will triple your ability to raise funds when you talk to people.
Wow. That is absolute brilliance. I love it. I love everything you've said and how you've said it to help us truly understand the impact of our words and how we can position our where we're coming from in such a way that the donor can't help but say yes. When you quantify it, you give it a product and give them an amount that it costs, they can see, yes, this, I'm going to support one veteran. Absolutely. And Tiana says, agree 100%. People should know upfront what they're supporting. Absolutely. They should know. And the way you use your words to structure that goes all into the whole storytelling piece, which I know you are a master of, Dan. So tell us a little bit more about storytelling and visibility. Now, I know that you've helped nonprofits get featured in major media. So how can organizations or entrepreneurs get that kind of attention?
So you'll find that a lot of my answers start with, well, think about the position of the person who you want to help you. So, yeah. In this case, we're talking reporters. We're talking podcast hosts. Media has gone past traditional media, right? So you do want to know, what kind of media do your potential donors listen to? If you're a community-based organization, mainstream media is a good bet. But there also might be podcasts, and they might read the newspaper. They might kind of figure out what you want to do.
Mhm.
But the first thing is you come from their perspective. So reporters are human beings. And as
Mhm.
human beings, they're not quite like police officers in that they don't experience the frontline trauma that first responders do, but they
Mhm.
experience secondary trauma through the work that they do in many cases, because
Mm.
they deal in the negative. What bleeds leads,
Oh, gosh.
right? And so
Yeah,
imagine
unfortunately, it's kind of true. Yeah.
every day you're going out and you're reporting on a murder. You're going out and you're talking about a shooting and a robbery. And you're going out and you're talking about fraud and waste and abuse. Imagine that's your life, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then along comes this person who says, "Hey, I have some good news." How does that make you feel?
Like,
You're
thank
like,
God.
right,
Finally,
finally,
finally. Somebody with something good to say.
right.
A little rainbow in my life. I need some sunshine and Skittles right now.
Exactly. So media is desperate for good stories from nonprofits. So that's the first thing to know, is they're looking for your story. And once you develop relationships with media in your area, they'll contact you. Like I have an organization last year. They put in a community fridge, which is amazing, right? You got a great place for people to go in and get the food they need if that's refrigerated. And they refill it every day. That's awesome.
Mhm.
It's not like, someone winning an election or, something crazy news story, but it's great. 3
Mhm.
local media outlets covered it.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
how desperate the media is right now for good news. So, how do you get yourself on said media? Number one, I want you to make a list of the media in your area. So just go through, start with TV stations. There should be 1 or 2 that covers, maybe 3 covers your area. So you start with TV stations, and then you look at radio shows, AM radio shows usually. Then you look at newspapers, and then you do your alternative media, your podcast, your YouTubers, whatever, right? Most of this stuff, you can Google it or ChatGPT will give it to you. And you come up with a little list of these stations. I want you to find the reporter or the person there who specializes in community, human interest stories, whatever. And with nothing to sell them, reach out and introduce yourself and ask if you can have a conversation and get to know them and what they're looking for.
Hmm.
You do that.
I'm sorry, would that be like the community relations manager, or what kind of titles should they look for when they go to these outlets?
Usually it's a reporter. So it's a reporter with a focus in human interest, or it's a focus on community or community organizations. Sometimes they'll have bios of their reporters, and you just look for the bio that best matches what your organization does. You do that.
Okay. Awesome.
But reach out and introduce yourself. Follow up a couple times. They're busy, but they probably want to talk to you. Reach out, introduce yourself, so you can have a conversation about what stories. This key question is, what stories are they looking to cover in your community? Remember, we're adding value all the time. Adding value. So, what questions are they looking to cover? Great. So now they know you exist. They might just contact you right off the bat like that. But now they know you exist. And then when you have any kind of cool thing that's going to be public coming up, when you have a impact that you've made recently and a story you want to share, or when you have one of those stories they're specifically looking for, you reach out to them. Very quick. Here's the thing. Are you interested? And you reach out to them, particularly for your mainstream people, one by one. Do not mass email them. They get mass emailed from 50,000 different people.
Right.
You send them that email, and then you call them 5 minutes later. You do that, and I guarantee you in 30 days, you'll have media coverage on your nonprofit.
Wow. So email them and immediately call them.
Yep.
That's the secret sauce, I think, right there. Because you started out this comment by saying, develop a relationship with your local media. And so as soon as you said that, I was like, well, how do we do that? Like, how do we develop relationship? How do we, that's hard. But then when you break it down like that, that find out who they are, what they do, what they're interested in, speak to that and reach out to them when you have something like that. Or just once they know you exist, then they're going to remember you like, hey, somebody else called me just a little bit ago or reached out to me about this particular thing that I'm interested in. Let me see if they have anything. So that is, so you're no longer having to reach out to them, but they're actually reaching out to you. And I love the part about sending an email and calling 5 minutes later, because yes, they get hundreds of emails a day, hundreds, literally hundreds of emails a day. So when you send them an email and call them, maybe just call the front desk of the radio station and ask for them. I guess that's what you do.
Yes, you can do that. Yep.
And because their phone number isn't always listed, I don't think, unless it's under media relations, then maybe it is.
Their phone number is almost always in their email signature. So when they email you back, now you have their phone number. Got
it. But when you send the initial email, you won't have their phone number. So you'll have to go and find out what it is, and so anyways, a little bit of research, but no one ever said it was going to be easy, but it's definitely the secret sauce to getting your name recognized, because now they're seeing your name on an email on their screen and they're hearing your voice on a voicemail message that you leave for them, associating them both together. So that makes you memorable, so that you can stand out from among the crowd of hundreds that are trying to reach out to them. So,
especially the big thing is just when you're doing nonprofit work and when you're in business, it's the hardest thing to remember, but it's the most effective thing, is always deliver value.
Yes.
Always. How can I help you? They want to help you, but you put them first. How can I help you? How can I make your job easier? And trust me, they want to have your stories and get you featured.
Yes, always deliver value and help them help you. I love it. Love it. And Fritzy says, very well said, Dan. Oh, thank you, Fritzy. Very well said. Definitely appreciate that so much. Great tips, great golden nuggets to take away, because we don't want to be that nonprofit that makes mistakes, or business that makes mistakes when trying to tell people about all the great things that we're doing. We want to be strategic about who we share our information with, not just throw everything out there and hope something sticks on, like spaghetti on a wall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and part of being strategic is remembering, just like everything you do in your nonprofit is designed to create a transformation.
Yes.
Everything. Yeah. Right? So
absolutely.
In for-profit businesses, they are designed to create transformations as well, but the P&L is what you determine your value by. You look at your profit and loss statement and you're like, did more people give me their money than I offered services? Great. We're doing good in the world.
Yes.
Right. The way you determine that for a nonprofit is how close are you getting to your vision? How many people are you transforming? How many minds are you changing, depending on your kind of organization? How close are you getting to your vision? So everything you do has to be built around, what is your vision? We want every veteran to be confident, have a peaceful home, and be able to take advantage of the opportunities in front of them. Great. Then everything you do is about veterans, is about helping them with their PTSD, and it is about helping them in those three areas. And you measure your progress by all of that. In everything you do as a nonprofit, you keep that focus in front of you of that transformation. If you do that, you will succeed as an organization. Like at the end of the day, if you are able to do that and you're able to sustain that, you will succeed as a nonprofit. And if you get off that beaten path, and you start forgetting what your purpose is, and you stop remembering what that is, you should just start a for-profit, because they're way more efficient if you don't know what your purpose is.
Yeah, you definitely need to know your purpose. I mean, and the values, what you stand for, all those things, they have to be front and center, foremost, to help drive your decision making daily. Like, how do you know if something's aligned if you don't have a purpose, or if you don't have a values that you are measuring against? You know what I mean? You have to have that. And so as you're talking, Dan, it's making me think about some of my friends who have nonprofit organizations, and some of the challenges that they share with me is, or that I've even experienced myself, is volunteers. How do you, is it similar? Is it a similar process? Like when you're trying to get media coverage, is when you're trying to get volunteers to help support you? How do you get those people to join with you in your cause, and you're not able to pay them anything?
So there's two pieces. And the first piece, and this applies to anybody you're trying to get to join your cause, donors, volunteers, media, whatever. When you're a for-profit, you have an offer, which is the kind of people and the transformation you're looking to create in their lives, right?
Right.
And you have your products and your packages underneath that offer.
Yep.
And when you're a nonprofit, your offer is very ethereal because it is in the future. Your offer as a business, particularly if you sell physical products, is this thing.
Yes.
Your offer as a nonprofit is, let me go inside your brain and show you the future, right? That's your offer. If you're going to be successful as a nonprofit, particularly if you are new, or you don't have a lot of connections, or you don't have a lot of advantages that just get you funding and get you volunteers and get you what you need, you have to have a truly transformational vision. What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you the 5 key pieces of a transformational vision right now. I'm not going to tell you how to do them because I don't have time for that, but I will give you the 5 key pieces. And I will note,
y'all get your pen. I'm stalling so y'all can get paper and pencils. Okay, we're ready. Number 1, what is it, Dan?
The first key piece of a transformational vision is your founding story.
Founding story.
People want to know where you came from. You asked me what my founding story was. And mine was a bit long, but it contains the elements of what you need in a founding story, which is you need, where did you come from? Who were you before you started doing this thing? What was the challenge that you faced that made you start doing this thing? And why? What did you see that other people were struggling with that made you go, I got to help other people now? This is a big thing. And what are you trying to do? What is your goal out of this? People want to know where you came from, because I guarantee you, every one of your donors kind of wishes they were in your spot. They wish that they were on the front lines helping the homeless. They wish that they were sitting with survivors of sexual assault and helping them overcome their challenges. They wish they were there. They don't have the time. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the team. They can't be there, but they wish they were. And so when you tell that founding story, you take them there.
Yes.
You bring them to that moment, and you allow them to experience what you felt. You allow them to experience the urgency and the need to go do this thing. Your founding story is piece number 1.
Got it.
Number 2 is you need a problem that needs to be solved now.
Now. Yes.
There are hundreds of thousands of social problems, and you need to be able to communicate why yours needs to be solved now.
Yes.
It is now 1 in 36 teenagers are diagnosed with autism. And yet there is nowhere for them to go in their communities to have fun. They can't go to Chuck E. Cheese and the other places where they better fit, because that's where their mental state is, and that's where they have fun, and that's where because they're this big 14-year-old kid that all the parents are looking at super weird and making it uncomfortable for them to be there. And they can't go hang out with their friends because they're going to places that they don't find fun and they don't find interesting. And so what happens is they sit at home and they act out, and they break things, and they regress. And all of the work that their teachers did with them in special ed, it goes out the window through that summer because they have nowhere to go.
Wow.
That is a problem that needs to be solved now. Not
Yeah.
tomorrow, not 3 weeks from now. Now. You need a problem that needs to be solved now.
Right.
Then you need a vision of the future. Here's what it looks like when we succeed. And then you need a mission, which only has one purpose. It is to tell me why your approach to this is unique. That's it. It's the only thing I want out of your vision.
So the vision and the mission go together?
The vision, they're separate, but they're part of the transformational vision, right? So you got your story, your problem, which is where you start, your vision, which is where we're going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your mission, which is how we get from A to B in our unique way.
Got it.
And then finally is your 3 core values.
Okay.
3 core values. This is who we are as an organization. This is the way we treat each other. We are an organization that prioritizes compassion, which means when you talk to a donor that prioritizes efficiency, you might not be as good of a fit because you want to sit longer with the people and they just want to, get them going through as fast as possible. There's nothing wrong with anybody else's values and nothing, right or better about yours, but you need to know what they are because somebody does not get on board with you until they know who you are.
True. Absolutely. Okay. So just to recap, we've got the story. We've got the problem that needs to be solved right now. We've got the vision. We've got the mission and our 3 core values.
That's right. You get those pieces together and it will take you a couple weeks, but you get those pieces together and you are actually serious about creating those. And when you talk to people, they will ask how they can get involved.
Wow.
So that's piece number 1, right? Of volunteers is volunteers, donors, media, anybody you are going to. You as a nonprofit cannot be successful without a transformational vision, period, end of story. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know who you're serving, and nobody else does either.
Right.
And then the second piece, which I'll be very quick on because I know we're starting to run out of time, is sorry.
When that happens.
The second piece is, that pomegranate juice that is sold everywhere, pomegranate, right?
Yeah, good stuff.
So POM is what you need in order to keep your volunteers. POM stands for purpose, ownership, mastery. This is the volunteer paycheck. The reason that I was able to build my organization to 10,000 volunteers is with every volunteer, we didn't learn this immediately. We had to get smacked in the face a few times. When you're broke and you rely on volunteers, you learn things about volunteers real quick.
Love that. So true. Spoken like an expert.
So employees get a paycheck. That's why employees come back. Volunteers also need a paycheck. And if you're not paying your volunteers, that's why they're leaving. And they get paid in these 3 things. Purpose is they get paid for being a part of something great. They get paid for being a part of something bigger than themselves. You are constantly coming back to your volunteers and you're saying, this is the impact we made recently. This is the impact we made recently. This is the story of a person who got impacted by us. Number 1 reason that they're there is the purpose of the organization. Number 2 is ownership. Anybody who says, I don't want credit for that, what they're really saying is, I don't want other people to see me take credit for that because I think that other people were doing part of this. But they absolutely need to know that they owned a part of your success. So ownership and allowing volunteers to make decisions about what happens in a particular area and to own a particular process and to own a particular space, it will keep them motivated because now they're not just renting from you. Now they own it.
Right. I love that.
And then finally is mastery, which is people volunteer for your organization because they want to get better at something. I'm volunteering for you because I am, starting a web design career and I want to design your website and get better at that. I would love to learn grant writing. I would love to learn this. I would love to learn that. Your volunteers probably have something you want to earn. So you bring them in with a transformational vision and you make sure they get their PALM paycheck every single month, and you will keep and recruit a great volunteer team.
Wow, that is magnificent. That is magnificent. And you have actually done this and grown organizations to over 10,000 volunteers. I mean, that's not an accident. That doesn't happen by mistake. That's very intentionally sharing the vision, giving them purpose, allowing them ownership in it, and allowing them an opportunity to master these gifts that they have and these skills and talents. So I love it. Absolutely love it. Love it. Love it. So good. So good. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe we've only got 5 minutes left in this show. The time has just flown. You have been amazing, Dan. Our audience has been great. Thank you so much for your input. How can we stay in touch with you? I know that there are some, when people are able to watch the replay, they're going to be contacting you for more information, more details. How can they stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so the simplest way is I have a freebie on the website. So my team and I have developed over the past couple of years the 5 things that you need to do as a new nonprofit leader to create a sustainable organization. That is the Sustainable Nonprofit Roadmap. So if you go to my website, nextlevelnonprofits.us, and you go to the Sustainable Nonprofit Roadmap, or it might be called checklist. I'm still working with people on that. You have a VA service. VAs are great.
They are.
So, but if you go there and you put in the reference that you were listening to us on Renee Speaks, so just put Renee Speaks into the reference, then I have a lot of people who want to get on my calendar all the time, but I will prioritize you. So you can download the 5 levels of sustainability, or the nonprofit roadmap, on my website at nextlevelnonprofits.us. And then I can shoot you an email with my calendar link if you want to know where your nonprofit is and how to get to the next level.
Awesome. And it's at the bottom of the page. Download the Sustainable Nonprofit Startup Checklist. Actually, we just went by it for those that are watching online. It's in the white letters in the green box. Put your first name, your reference is Renee Speaks, your email, and then you'll be able to download the checklist. And Dan, thank you so much for making yourself available to our audience. They are surely grateful. I'm grateful to you for this opportunity to stay connected, to learn more about how to have a successful nonprofit. And even if it's not even nonprofit related, I'm an entrepreneur, business owner. There's so many concepts that relate to what it is that we're doing, as well as we're trying to grow our businesses and reach out to potential new clients, and how we position our statement to them that, this is what we have to offer. Would you like our services? Do you know what I mean? It's very, very similar. There's so much cross connection between the two nonprofit and entrepreneurial world. It's not that big of a leap to go from one to the other. So thank you so much for all you do for the communities and for nonprofit leaders. Dan, you were made for something great. So go and be awesome.